Okay, so my name's William Dalrymple, and my new book is called Return of a King. And it's the story of this epic colonial disaster, the worst disaster suffered by the British Empire for 100 years. In 1839, 18,000 British troops march into Afghanistan. 3 years later, one man emerges to tell the tale, Dr. Brydon on his pony, making it finally through to Jalalabad after the whole of the rest of the army has been captured or slaughtered. It's the worst disaster in 19th century imperial history, and a magnificent story, rather like a non-fiction version of Flashman. What is different about this book is I think it is literally the first and only book on the Afghan war which actually gives the Afghan accounts. Defeating the British was for the Afghans Waterloo, Trafalgar and the Battle of Britain all rolled into one. It was a major victory and a surprising and astonishing victory for the Afghans, who were one of the poorest nations in the world like they are today. They've got very primitive weaponry, and yet they saw off the British at the very peak of their power. After many years' research, I've now got 11 completely unused accounts of this war from the other side, and hopefully we can now see it in a completely new perspective. In a way, I suppose it's doing what Anthony Beevor did with Stalingrad. He was the first person to get into the Soviet archives and tell the story of Stalingrad from the Russian side as well as the German side, which is what we'd always received until then. This book, in the same way, uses these extraordinary accounts left by the British survivors. An amazing woman called Lady Sale, who was the only British woman to write an account of being taken prisoner during this retreat, and who wrote one of the great captivity narratives of her time in Afghan hands. So on one hand you have these characters, and then you have these extraordinary Afghans who are incredibly brave, and however much one may fear or even dislike the Taliban today, one can only admire the way that they're seeing off all comers today, as they have done throughout their history. Anyone that knows anything about the first Afghan war will know how very close it was in shape to the disaster now unfolding with our current war, which is in fact Britain's fourth Afghan war, although it's never referred to that in the media. Whenever you go to Afghanistan, you see the same story replaying itself. The one survivor who was taken prisoner at the last stand in Gundamuk, a man called Captain Thomas Suter. NATO have named one of its bases in Helmand today, Camp Suter, after this guy. And so there's a very strong sensation for anyone that knows the 19th century history of seeing history unfold and repeat itself in a very direct manner, the same battles being fought in the same places. It's more or less exactly the same tribal wars going on under slightly different flags. And I think this hasn't been said. I don't think people are aware of quite how close the battle that we're seeing today, going badly wrong, is exactly the same war that went badly wrong 200 years ago. And this book is really all about how we failed to learn the lessons which were there, if anyone had bothered. But neither George Bush nor Tony Blair knew their history. And as a result, as famously Burke put it, anyone who is ignorant of history is destined always to carry on repeating it.